Good afternoon and welcome to our latest Zoom meeting. Our topic today is inflation, declining purchasing power, record debt, and all-time real estate price peaks. I'm Rick Tobin. I own Real Loans Mortgage Company. I do residential construction and commercial loans around the country. I also have a real estate course called Learn Real Estate, and I lead the SoCal Real Estate Investors Group. So let's get started. Declining purchasing power and rising debt. The M1 money supply increased from $4 trillion in January 2020 to $20 trillion in October 2021, while severely damaging the purchasing power of the dollar. This is really the main reason why consumer goods and services have skyrocketed, because the dollar has gotten so weak. Medical bills and divorce are the leading causes of financial insolvency or bankruptcy filings here in the US. Approximately 70% of people who filed for bankruptcy, primarily due to unpaid medical bills, had medical insurance at the time, which wasn't sufficient enough to cover all the debt. US households have an all-time record high of $10,170 in credit card debt, as per Wallet Hub. Average student loan debt per person is just over $37,000. Debtors, unfortunately, cannot wipe out unpaid student loan or child support debt in bankruptcy court. The average credit card rate reached a record high of 28.1% as per Forbes earlier this year. However, it's been rising quite a bit the last several months. U.S. federal debt surpassed $35 trillion in July of this year. As compared to all U.S. mortgage debt combined, reaching $19.4 trillion. So that's residential, commercial, farm, raw land debt. Housing debt and equity trends. So 140 million housing units in America, almost 65% of homes having mortgage, or about 96 million properties. 31.2% of homes are free and clear with no mortgage, or about 43.6 million properties. There's about 1.7 million housing units under construction, with a high percentage of those being multifamily apartment units. There's 44 million rental units across the US. 80% of retirees own a home, while nearly half live near poverty. So their wealth is tied up in the equity of their home. Credit card rates and fees, or APRs, which is the annual percentage rates, today average 28%, as I said earlier. However, more and more cards are about 30 to 40% APRs, as compared to just 12% back in 2008, when the credit crisis or Great Recession started. 30-year fixed rates reach a 23-year high in late 2023, while moving much lower, this year in 2024. U.S. credit card debt is at an all-time record high at $1.3 trillion. Right now, we're number one all-time high for debt and delinquency percentages. U.S. auto loans are at $1.56 trillion. That's a record high as well. U.S. student loans are at $1.8 trillion. About 500,000 borrowers out of the 43.5 million borrowers, or just a 1.15%, we're actually paying their student loans on time prior to October 1st of 2023. So just over 1% of all student loan borrowers were actually paying their loans before they were, required to start paying them again as of the restart date of October 1st. However, I just read a few days ago, still 20% of the people who are now required to pay their student loans still haven't made one payment. Seniors, which typically are baby boomers, those people born between 1946 and 1964, are set to pass on more than $70 trillion to their heirs, whether they're millennials or Gen Z. Unpaid credit card balance risk. The average APR for merchant cards, like an Amazon or Nordstrom's card, which many holiday shoppers will be using soon, online or at nearby malls, reached 28.93% last year, and they're probably higher now. This was a new all-time record, up from 26.72% in 2022. Okay, so I'm going to give you a credit card example. showing you why credit card debt is bad. Unpaid credit card balance, 20,000. Using the interest rate of 28.93%, the annual interest paid for 1 year would be 5,786, or 20,000 times 28.93%. If you just paid the minimum interest-only payments, it would be about $482.17 a month. If the borrower just pays the absolute minimum interest-only payments, it will take 41 years and 7 months to pay off the unpaid balance. If so, this is 11 years and 7 months longer than a new 30-year mortgage. The total interest paid by the borrower over this time period would be $220,496.44, or 11 times the original $20,000 balance. So that's a lot of debt. All-time record credit card delinquency rates. There is not a single state in the nation today with less than a 10% credit card delinquency rate for their residents, as credit card APRs, again, hover between 28 and 40%. Back near the depths of the Great Recession in April 2009, when credit card rates were closer to 12%, the national credit card delinquency rate was only 6.77%. So let's look at by state. The percentage of consumers who are delinquent on one or more accounts: Mississippi, 39%, Louisiana, 32%, Alabama, 31%, Arkansas, 30%, Oklahoma, 28%, down to Florida and California at 15%. By city, McAllen and El Paso, Texas, rank as the worst for credit card default rates at 51.7% and 46.3% respectively. Those are shocking numbers. The top 5 most affordable housing regions in America, they have the lowest percentage of income to monthly household payment numbers. So the most affordable is Toledo, Ohio at 18.7%. Their median home list price is $106,900. So it only takes about 18.7% of the average or the average or median household income to qualify to buy a home. Detroit, it's 19.3%. Fort Wayne, Indiana, 26.2%. Wichita, Kansas, 26.6%. Buffalo, New York, 27.5%. Out of the 100 major cities analyzed by Realty Hop, a whopping 88 of the cities had home buyers paying more than 30% of their monthly income towards household expenses. Now, conversely, let's look at the most unaffordable housing regions in the nation. 3 of the top 5 most unaffordable housing regions in America are located in Southern California, where I am. Number 1, Los Angeles. Number 2, number 3, Irvine. And number 5, Long Beach. Miami was ranked number 2, and New York City was number 4 as of May of this year. Average families who earn the median income in LA must now spend a shockingly high percentage of 99.33% of their income on home ownership cost, as discovered in this Realty Hop survey. If true, the average Los Angeles resident would have just 0.67%, or less than 1%, of household income left over to purchase groceries and pay for utilities, automobiles, clothing, home maintenance, and other basic necessities if they're actually able to qualify for a home mortgage with those very high debt-to-income ratios. Now, again, these numbers are off of gross income. California has the highest state income tax brackets in the nation that goes high as about 13.3%. So it's not factoring in people paying federal and state income taxes. So they would be spending, I don't even know what the calculation would be, but they'd be spending 130% maybe of their net take-home pay if they could qualify. So again, if you look at LA, 99.3% of household income would need to be spent to buy a property with a median home list price of $1.1 million. Miami, 92.8% if they're paying the average price of $710. Irvine, 85% if they're paying the average price closer to about 1.5 million. New York, 76.6% if they're paying $850, the median list price. And Long Beach, 70%, you'd be paying about 70% of their household income to qualify for almost an $800,000 home. Income requirements for homes by state. Families who live in the 5 most expensive U.S. states for home purchases require an annual income exceeding $270,000 to live, quote unquote, comfortably, according to a report published by Visual Capitalist. Comfortable is defined as the income required to cover a 50-30-20 budget, with 50% set aside for housing utilities, 50% for discretionary spending, and 20% allocated for savings or investments. So if you look at, we'll just look at the top 5 states. So Massachusetts, number 1, you need $301,000 to live comfortably. Hawaii, almost $295,000. Connecticut, almost $280,000. New York, almost $279,000. Here in California, almost $277,000. That's a lot of money. The Golden State of California. There are 40 million residents here in the state. We're the 5th largest economy in the world. If we looked at the U.S. would be number 1, including California. Number 2, China. 3, Germany. 4, Japan. And number 5, California, if we were our own nation. California is 1,040 miles in length and 560 miles in width. There are approximately 156,000 square miles of land and an additional 7,734 square miles that are covered by water for a grand total of 164,000 square miles. Most of the state is protected and unbuildable. And I put together this analysis several years ago, so this is all my data. I've never seen anyone else publish this. But to me, it's really interesting to show how little land there is for people to live on here in California. So again, so for our 40 million residents, we live on only about 5.4% of the available state land supply. If we divide 156,000 square miles of available land by the 5.4% of land that's allowed to have residents living there, this means that only 8,424 square miles of California has residential or commercial real estate and residents on it. This works out to 4,748 California residents, or 4,748 California residents per square mile on the buildable land supply. Let's put this 8,424 square miles of buildable land here in California into better perspective by comparing it to other regions. All of the Hawaiian Islands combined, 6,422 square miles. The Big Island of Hawaii by itself, 4,028 square miles. The state of Connecticut, 5,543 square miles. And Puerto Rico, 3,515 square miles. So if you really think about it, I don't know if you've been to the Big Island of Hawaii. It's one of my favorite places in the world. Effectively, imagine 40 million residents living on 2 big islands of Hawaii. That's about the equivalent. Okay, so California income and mortgage debt. Average California household income is about $73,220. Median existing statewide home price reached $908,000 back in May, a 12.4 home price to income ratio. The median home sales price in Los Angeles County hit a record peak high of $914,640 back last September. The median LA County price was $308,000 by comparison back in December 2008, or almost $600,000 lower than the recent peak high. House payment as a percent of median household income in California was 65.19%. We were the number 2 highest behind Hawaii. Mortgage debt by state in the first quarter of last year, California had 2.3 trillion. So all of the mortgages in California combined was about 2.3 trillion. Number 2 is Texas at about 0.88 trillion, or 880 billion. And Florida was third at about 850 billion. So California's total unpaid mortgage debt is almost 3 times greater than Texas, with only a 25% larger population base, or we have 40 million residents versus 30 million residents in Texas. The average homeowner lives in their home 7 years, which is also the same time they are in their mortgage. There's fewer qualifying buyers today, or over the last 10 years, between 2013 and 2023. So as a recent study completed back in April, an unaffordable home is defined as a new listing with a monthly mortgage payment that is no more than 30% of the median monthly income in its county or state. So only 16% of U.S. homes for sale were considered affordable last year, which was an all-time record low. And this year is on pace to be even less affordable than 2023. So by comparison, in 2021, 39% of listed properties were considered affordable. With just 0.3% of home listings deemed affordable, Los Angeles has the lowest share of affordable listings in America. By contrast, Detroit is the most affordable region, with over 51% of the homes being affordable for the average person with the average income in that region. So let's look at how the affordable U.S. housing percentages have rapidly declined between 2013 and 2023. This is nationwide. So 2013, it was 50% of households could qualify to buy a home. And it started falling, 46%, 45%, 42%, 37%, 40%, 45%. And that's when rates were, getting to record lows, 39%. So as rates started going up in 21, 22, affordability started declining. So last year, only 16% of households could qualify for a median price home. Okay, the top 20 most unaffordable cities in the nation. 17 of the top 20 most unaffordable cities to buy a home are located in either the counties of Los Angeles, Orange, or San Diego. The other 3 cities are in Northern California. So this is a national study conducted by Construction Coverage, not just for a state. So again, the top 20 most unaffordable cities in the entire nation are all located in California. So by city, the top 3 most unaffordable cities are as follows. Newport Beach, I lived there for several years. That's a beautiful region, but very unaffordable. A median home price of $3.23 million. There they have a median household income of $127,000 and a home price to household income ratio of 25.4%. Number 2, Palo Alto, California. That's where Stanford University is located. Median home price of $3.41 million. Median household income of $179,000 and a home price to household income ratio of 19. So again, you would divide the home price by the household income to arrive at the home price to household income ratio of 19. You want that number to be lower, to make it more affordable. And surprising, number 3, Glendale, up in Los Angeles County, a very nice area, but they're the number 3 most unaffordable region. Their home price is $1.17 million. Their median household income is lower. It's almost $77.5 million, and a home price to household income ratio of 15.2. And you can look at the other cities in the top 20. So I expect many of these people later to move out to Riverside and San Bernardino counties because it's a lot more affordable than along the coast. Okay, Riverside is ironically what I just said. Riverside's the #1 toughest place to save money. The national personal savings rate has dropped from record highs of over 20% back in 2020 and also in 2021 to 3.8% as of January of this year. It's fallen even further up until as of like last month. I think it's closer to about 3.5 or 3.3%. So many Americans these days can come up with $400 in cash for an unexpected emergency, partly due to rising grocery, gas, utilities, housing, whether you own or rent, clothing, restaurant, entertainment costs, and whether or not they have state income taxes. So the Riverside San Bernardino, Ontario metropolitan region is ranked as the #1 most challenging place in America to save money, with the Los Angeles, Long Beach, Anaheim metro region ranked second. This is partly because the Riverside income isn't as high as the other coastal regions. So the list of the top 5 toughest places to save money, as I mentioned, Riverside 1, LA 2, Miami 3, New York, Jersey area 4, and the Atlanta metro region number 5. So marriage and divorce trends. The overall divorce rate in Orange County, California is 72%. It's 60% statewide in California and over 50% nationwide. 41% of first marriages end in divorce, 60% of second marriages end in divorce, and 73% of third marriages end in divorce. The average length of a marriage in the US that ends in divorce is 8 years from start to finish. Unmarried parents who live together are more likely to break up than married parents. Since 1990, divorce rates for people over 50 have doubled, and they've tripled for people over 65. A high percentage of home listings today are directly related to divorce, with 1, 2, or more sales transactions involved. So if a couple owns a home, they may have to sell it and then take those assets, and then maybe if they have enough money, maybe each of them is going to buy another house. The US now has the highest percentage of single-person households in the world and lowest marriage rates ever. US fertility rates are the lowest ever, as well as fewer babies are born. I think it's really over the last 7 years, each year it's gotten progressively worse, for the fertility rates keep falling. So there's fewer and fewer babies born. US is #1 for highest teen pregnancy rate in the industrialized world. 50% of children are born to unmarried women under the age of 30. Married couples are 4 times wealthier than unmarried or single people, so healthier relationships make you wealthier. I don't know if everyone knows this, but I'm an associate producer of the Erasing Family film and organized a world premiere for it back in San Diego back in February of 2020, like 1 month before the pandemic declaration. It was covered by CBS News. It's now on YouTube for free. So I write a lot about family trends, but if you'd like to watch the video to learn more about what's going on with how families are disappearing, you can watch for free on YouTube. The American Dream costs $3.4 million lifetime, according to an Investopedia analysis. So I'm just going to go over this quickly. So you just look at the numbers for the average person, what they spend in their lifetime. But I don't see any taxes included in this survey, so it could be a lot worse. But that just shows you how much money each of us spends in our entire life. So 3.4 million is the estimate. Consumer and government trends. According to Michael Snyder's article, the U.S. has the biggest government in the history of the world by a very wide margin. Let's take a look at the numbers. Upwards of 3 million people work for the federal government. The federal government last year spent $6.13 trillion. This figure is larger than the GDP, or gross domestic product, of every nation on the planet except for the US and China. More than 70 million Americans are on Social Security. More than 65 million Americans are on Medicare. More than 81 million Americans are on Medicaid. More than 41 million Americans are on food stamps. We've borrowed $1 trillion over the last 3 months. When I say we, I mean our federal government. $2 trillion over the last 6 months, and $11 trillion over the past 4 years. You know, by comparison, between 1980 and 1990, the federal debt only grew by $2 trillion over 10 years. Now we're growing $1 trillion every 90 days, so that's not good for us. Consumer and government spending trends. U.S. households racked up $17.2 1.29 trillion in record debt last year. Mortgages, credit cards, auto, and student loans. The federal U.S. debt crossed another milestone recently, surpassing 35. Actually, now it's more than 35 trillion. By comparison, in 2009, U.S. debt was 10.6 trillion. As I said earlier, between 1980 and 1990, over 10 years, total federal debt only increased by 2 trillion. Nearly 30% of Americans are behind on one or more debts payments. 56 million Americans had unpaid credit card debt for more than a year. One late payment can drop a FICO credit score between 80 and 180 points. As you may or may not know, I've been running real estate courses in most states for the 2 largest real estate publishers in America. And I've written a lot of credit courses. Last year, I wrote the updated credit course for Kaplan. Kaplan's the number 2 largest real estate publisher in America. They're best known for publishing high school and college textbooks. So with my clients, a lot of time, I'm helping them with their credit for free as we're underwriting the mortgage file. Okay, owner-occupied U.S. homes as a percentage of gross domestic product. As of last year, the size of the total overall U.S. bond market was listed at 51 trillion. If the home value trends just keep rising, just the value of all the owner-occupied debt in America will likely surpass the size of the entire U.S. bond market. That's just for the owner-occupied housing mortgage debt. This gets a little confusing, but it's just showing you how the mortgage debt continues to grow. So let me move on to the next slide. And if you'd like a copy of the entire slideshow, send me an email. I'll send you a downloaded copy. So you don't need to take notes, but I'll email it to you so you can follow it, learn as you go. Okay, commercial real estate meltdown. In January of this year, economists from the International Monetary Fund claimed that the commercial real estate values nationwide had fallen at the steepest pace in more than 50 years. As we approach the 4th quarter here in 2024, we're seeing the values escalate and get worse. So as of this past July, the national office vacancy rate reached a whopping 20.1%. This was the very first time ever that the U.S. vacancy rate surpassed 20%. Almost 45% of all office buildings nationwide that are leveraged with debt are upside down or underwater with negative equity, meaning their existing mortgage debt is higher than their current market value. Approximately 20% or $929 billion of the $4.7 trillion worth of outstanding commercial mortgages owed to lenders and investors may balloon or become all due and payable by the end of just this year. That's just 3.5 months away is the end of the year. So a lot of these commercial property owners are going to need to sell, refinance, or work out a deal with their existing lender, or the lender will start foreclosing. If so, it's probably going to drive commercial property values down even further. Okay, inflation's impact on homes and wages. Between January 2020 and the end of 23, U.S. home prices rose a staggering 47%. So that's just over, between January 2020 and end of 2023. That's less than 4 years, so it increased 47%. Between the Fed starting, when they started raising rates in 2022, before the Fed started raising rates, a $2,000 monthly housing budget would have bought a home costing more than $400,000. Today, a $2,000 monthly household budget gets you $295,000 or less. To be able to afford the median price home of $433,000 last year, a household needed an annual income of roughly $166,000 to qualify. However, the median household income nationwide earned just about $74,500, which is only 45% of the recommended amount to qualify. Existing home sales between 1998 and 2007 averaged 6 million home sales per year. Through March of this year, the annual home selling pace was closer to almost 4.2 million. So over the past 50 years, between 1973 and 2023, home prices rose by nearly 1,300%, as compared with a 610% gain in the CPI, or Consumer Price Index, which measures, inflation, like for food, clothing, other basics. The inflation-adjusted hourly work wage has increased by just a measly 1% over the past 50 years. That's not an annual 1% increase, but just a 1% total gain over and above 1973's wages in 2023. Again, so that's adjusted for inflation. May confuse a little bit, but that works out to a 1/50th of 1% increase per year in wages. So most people are making their money working, as a W-2 employee. They're making their money by buying assets that are increasing in value, like real estate or stocks. By comparison, the inflation-adjusted median home price has gained 100% over the past 50 years. As a result, real home prices have increased by more than 100 times the real wage gains. It's really, really shocking if you really think about it. Small Business Owners Survey back in June. According to SBA and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, small businesses with 500 or fewer employees make up 99% of all U.S. businesses. It's not Amazon and Walmart ruling the world, or at least not just yet. It's small businesses. 82% of the 33 million small businesses are run by just one owner with no employees, and 16% have 1 to 19 employees. Here's the alignable monthly survey of nearly 4,000 small business owners. 72% of small business respondents said that their June 24 income was lower than pre-COVID back in March 2020. 38% of surveyed small business owners had only 1 month or less of cash on hand. Upwards of 79% of small business owners polled say that they're paying employees more now than ever, and that cumulative inflation was their top concern. A record 46% of small business owners said they couldn't pay their rent in full or on time back in June. The top 5 industries that struggle to pay their rent on time include automotive at 57%, science and technology at 52%, manufacturing number 3 at 46%, real estate number 4 at 44%, and retail at 44%. So those are really dire numbers. Creating a financial recovery plan. Assess the overall financial situation and develop a realistic plan. Prioritize debt repayment and allocate resources effectively. Consolidating debt and negotiating with lenders may be beneficial. If you file for bankruptcy, then reestablish credit as quickly as possible with debit or credit cards that report to the bureaus as soon as possible. And I can help you with this, and I have for many years. Order a free copy of your credit from Experian, TransUnion, or Equifax, and work to boost your FICO scores that range from a low of 300 to a high of 850. What is your why as it relates to eliminating your debt and building wealth? Is it to help you and your loved ones? Focus on the why each and every day, and you will likely reach your goals sooner rather than later. Invest in your future today. Homeowners are 40 times wealthier than tenants. The average age of a first-time homebuyer in the U.S. is 36, while it's closer to 49 years of age here in California, because our median home prices are more than double the national average. The average homeowner at retirement age has 83% of their net worth tied up in their main home. The The fastest growing demographic in the workforce is over the age of 75 because Social Security and pensions aren't high enough per the Pew Research Center. That's shocking. So the fastest growing workforce by age in the US now is over the age of 75. You would think it'd be like over 21, younger workers. 60% plus of Americans say they live paycheck to paycheck. The average Social Security benefit paid out as of December of last year was $1,767 a month, or $21,200 a year. Median savings rate, excluding retirement funds by age, was $3,240 for people under the age of 35, just over $4,700 for people 35 to 44, $5,620 for people 45 to 54, and $6,400 for people 55 to 64. The median retirement savings for all families, and that's everyone in the household, so that could be 2, 3, 4 people, is $87,000 according to a 22 survey. However, you may need 1.4 to 1.7 million to retire here in California, if not, much higher. Home price to household income ratios here in California. It's a little more complicated, but I'll just simplify it again. So you take the median home price in your region. For easy math, let's say it's $1 million. Statewide for California, it's been averaging about 900,000, so it's not that far out of whack. So if you have household income, and that may be 2 or more workers, and they're earning $100,000, you would divide the median price home in that area of $1 million by 100,000 income, and that would give you a 10 times home price to household income ratio. So the higher the number, the less affordable it is. So according to this survey from last year, nationwide, 5.3 is the current U.S. medians because their homes are much more affordable. But here in California, in Riverside, it's 10.5 times. In LA, it's 14 times. Santa Rosa up north is 14 times. San Diego is 14.3 times. San Francisco is 14.6 times. San Jose is 16.2 times. San Luis Obispo is 17.6 times. And Santa Cruz up north is 20 times. So let's look at Santa Cruz. Let's just, for easy math, let's say the median price there is $2 million and the median household income is $100,000. So you divide $2 million by $100,000 to arrive at 20 times. So that makes it really, really unaffordable. By comparison, there's some areas in like Southern Illinois you can buy foreclosures for $20,000 or $30,000. So it's less than, it would be under one times because the average household income is higher than some of these foreclosure prices in Southern Illinois or in Baltimore, where I've seen foreclosures for $10,000. Okay, home value to income ratio is also a little more complicated, but let's just focus on the most affordable, lowest home price to income ratios. They were in Pittsburgh at 3.2 times, Buffalo, New York at 3.5 times, and in Cleveland at 3.5 times. So right now, compared to historical trends, we have the most unaffordable homes in U.S. history. Okay, inflation-adjusted home prices between 1890 and last year. Since 2019, the median price of a U.S. home has increased by more than $100,000. Inflation-adjusted home prices were 85% above their historical average, dating all the way back to 1890. And also, inflation-adjusted home prices were 20% above the 2008 housing peak before the 5-year bubble burst that lasted through 2013. So the last big housing bubble we had, depending on the region, home prices were peaking in late 2006, 2007, or 2008. Again, depends on the region. And that was the last time, housing values were kind of at their peak. But now our bubble peak is much higher than back then. So that's kind of a concerning sign. Okay, home price index, inflation adjusted 1890 to 2024. This is a slight variation of the previous slide. It's just showing you how much higher the bubble has gone just in a year. So if you remember, I said the back last year in 2023, the inflation adjusted home prices were 85% above the historical average. Now here in 2024, they're 100% higher. So the bubble just keeps going. So again, I'll email this if you'd like to see it. You can, review it on your own, so you don't have to take notes. So let's get to the next slide. Okay, visualizing wealth distribution here in America in 1990 to last year. I like this quote by Warren Buffett. If you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. Or let your money work hard for you instead of you working hard for your money. Okay, wealth distribution across the U.S. has become increasingly concentrated in the hands of fewer people since 1990. Overall, the top 10% of wealthiest Americans own more than the bottom 90% combined, with more than 95% trillion in wealth for the top 10%. In 2024, the share of wealth held by the richest with 0.1% is near its peak, with a minimum of 38 million in wealth in just 131,000 households. With 20 trillion in wealth, the top 0.1% earn an average of 3.3 million in income each year. The greatest share of wealth owned by the top 0.1% is held in stocks and mutual funds, which makes up about a third of their total assets. By comparison, households in the lower, middle, and middle classes, as found in the 50% to 90% income and asset brackets, are claimed to have 165,000 wealth that's held primarily in real estate, and then followed by pension and retirement benefits. So the average quote-unquote wealthy person you may or may not know has the bulk of their wealth concentrated in real estate. We're not talking about the super wealthy like Elon Musk. We're talking about the average wealthy person you may or may not know. They made their money from real estate. So unless you're in the top 0.1%, the odds are quite high that the bulk of your wealth is concentrated in real estate if you're fortunate to own now. Okay, the eighth wonder of the world. I've written about this for about 30 years. Compound interest is such an amazing investment concept that it's been called the eighth wonder of the world. The magic of compound interest can be best illustrated or visualized by answering this financial riddle. If you take a penny and double it every day, how much money will you have in a 31-day month? Okay, so think about it for a month. What's your guess? What has a doubling penny become after a 31-day month? Most of my friends guess maybe a few $1,000s or possibly a few $100,000. Yet the same little almost worthless penny snowballs in the final week of the 31-day estimate and grows to over $10,700,000 in compounded value. So if I give you a penny for your thoughts, will you turn those same thoughts into wealth? So again, you could look at the chart. It's really not doing much until it gets to about the 20th or 21st day, and then it skyrockets. So as inflation continues to increase exponentially and seemingly snowball every single day, then what better asset class to benefit from high rates of inflation is there than real estate? So is it better to work hard for your money or let your money work hard for you? Or what I'm trying to encourage you with this slide is start investing when you're young, then over time, the assets will create wealth for you. So buy the assets, sit on it, and let the assets compound like this, magical penny. Okay, all-time record tappable equity. American mortgage holders today have access to a staggering 11 trillion in tappable equity that's over and above their existing mortgage balances, according to a May survey. The amount of residential property equity today is so massive that if all 48 million homeowners spent $10 million of their tappable equity every single day, it would take more than 3,000 years to exhaust it or spend all the money. This amount of residential equity available is more money than the gross domestic product of Japan, India, and the United Kingdom combined. The same report identified just 5 housing markets on the West Coast that represented a quarter or 25% of that 11 trillion equity. LA, San Francisco, San Jose, San Diego, and Seattle. So again, 4 of these 5 core equity cities are located in Southern California. Or sorry, in the entire state of California. Extreme rate swings, steady home gains. Between 2000 and 2023, the median U.S. home appreciated approximately 10.63% per year. By comparison, California homes rose 12.55% per year. So doubling value forecast. The rule of 72 is an investment formula used to estimate how long it may take for an asset to double in value using a projected annual rate of return. So in this example, you take 72, you divide by 7 or 7%, and it will give you a projection of your future investment may double in over 10 years. You know, if it continued to grow at the same historical 7% gain. So a home purchase using the national average annual gain of 10.63% would double in value in just 6.77 years if purchased this year and it grew at the same, annual gain of 10.63%. That's for national. If you bought a home in California, it might double in value in 5.74 years. Or you take, for the rule of 72, you take 72, divide by 12.55%. That's the average gain between 2000 and last year. And so again, that's it's kind of encouraging. So if it continued at the same pace. Home prices tend to go skyward following a Fed pivot when they start slashing rates. When will the Fed start cutting rates again? Well, they might start as early as next week on September 18th. So after that, their next meeting dates are November 6th and 7th and December 17th and 18th. Okay, real estate, inflation, and wealth creation. The true inflation rates are much higher than the published inflation rates, partly due to how the federal government has modified how they measure inflation over the past few decades. Real estate has proven to be an exceptional hedge against inflation over the past 100 years because homes tend to rise up at least as high as the published inflation rates. Most first-time home buyers use high mortgage leverage within a 0 to 6% down payment range. 6% down payments have been the average the last couple of years for most owner-occupants. So let's use a 20% home down payment range estimate for an estimated cash-on-cash return for a buyer. At a 7% annual appreciation rate average, the cash-on-cash return is actually 5 times the 7% down payment. Again, in this example, whether they're investor or owner-occupant, he or she put 20% down payment. So for easy math, let's say they found an incredible bargain and bought a $100,000 home with 20% down or $20,000 down. Well, the bank is bringing in the other 80% or $80,000 in this example, or 4/5 of the purchase price. So it'd be a total 35% annual cash-on-cash return. So the cash-on-cash return on a leveraged home is much higher than most people realize. So again, for most Americans, the bulk of their net worth is derived from the equity in their primary home. Time and inflation can be 2 great allies to eliminate the mortgage debt as your home rises in value thanks to the power of leverage and inflation. The best time to start is today. Okay, realtor statistics. Last year, there were about 1.5 million realtors who belong to the National Association of Realtors. But there's a total of about 2 million real estate agents. There have been about 200,000 to 300,000 active real estate licenses here in California, depending on the boom and bust cycles. 64% of realtors were licensed sales agents, 20% held broker licenses, and 18% held broker associate licenses. The typical realtor is a 60-year-old white female who attended college and is a homeowner. 62% of all realtors are female, and the median age of all realtors now is 60. So the average realtor age is about the average home seller age of 60. Real estate experience of all realtors is about 11 years. Median tenure at present firm is about 6 years. Most realtors work about 30 hours a week, or they did back in 2022. Median income for realtors was about $56,422, an increase from $54,321. Okay, with the NAR settlement, commissions are still negotiable. Again, I've written real estate courses in most states for the 2 biggest publishers in America. So I actually teach realtors how to buy, how to sell, how to market, and how to pass their exams. So what they did with the settlement, and this could take 20 minutes to explain, but I'm just gonna give you the short version. Now realtors, as of a few weeks ago, have to get the buyer prospects to sign a buyer agency agreement before they work with them. Well, a lot of buyer prospects are hesitant to do that. They don't know whether or not they're going to work with, the agent they met at the open house or at the supermarket or somewhere else. So it's going to scare off some buyers from signing that. But in most states, buyers have to sign a buyer agency agreement before the realtor, shows them a property. But this is still to be worked out. But last year, the average, nearly 50% of realtors did not close one deal. So hopefully, they'll work this out, and buyers are more willing to sign buyer brokerage agreements so the agents can move forward. Okay, interest rate and home value directions. Home values and interest rate trends tend to be inverse with one another. When rates are low, home values tend to rise. Conversely, rising rates can cause home values to fall. Even if the Federal Reserve pivots and cuts rates starting next week on September 18th, a housing bottom tends to take between 24 and 48 months on average following a Federal Reserve rate cutting campaign, or it can take between 2 and 4 years before the housing market values hit bottom. Between late 2008 and 2015, when rates were near zero, it took upwards of 7 years for some housing regions to rebound. The main difference between today's housing market and past housing cycles is that there are still several million shadow inventory homes that haven't become listings as of yet. For example, COVID-19 forbearance FHA and VA loans. There are a lot of people who haven't made one mortgage payment in about 3.5 years, yet the lenders still have not foreclosed. So if and when these homes become foreclosures, it's going to start increasing the national home listing trends, and that's when home values may start to fall. So when supply exceeds demand, this is when prices fall. So if you're a buyer, this could be a good thing, because if home values start rapidly declining, you may see some bargains soon. California, in the last meltdown for the credit crisis or the Great Recession, between the peak high in late 2006 and the market low in about 2012, median home prices in California fell a still all-time record loss of negative 41.7%. So that's the all-time record. So California was number one. Florida and Arizona, other Sunbelt regions were kind of right behind us. So imagine a home near you that fell as much as it did in the last bubble burst of 41.7%. So again, if you're a buyer, that can be a good thing. If you're a homeowner, that could be a little concerning, if you're thinking about selling in the near term. So Here's some of my mortgage loan products. Again, I've spoken now for about an hour. I can email this to you for anyone interested. But I will focus on this one, which is really surprising, just a little bit in these numbers. 12,000 US baby boomers per day, again, people born between 46 and 64, they surpass the age of 65. So 12,000 people a day, Americans per day, surpass the age of 65. By 2030, 100 million Americans will be 65 years old. That's amazing to think about. But here's one other thing I want to share. This year, in 2024, 25% of Americans will be 60 or older. So a quarter of all Americans will be 60 or older just this year. So again, I just wanted to cover those numbers. But I can email these programs, but there's just, let's see. Distressed property situations. I just want to explain this briefly. Whether you're an investor or in a situation like this, forbearance agreement, that's when a lender agrees to mutually postpone or delay their foreclosure actions with the delinquent borrower. So again, the borrower may be down, it may have months or years of no payments. So these foreclosure postponements can last, like I just said, months or years. Loan modification, the lender or mortgage service company agree to reduce the existing interest rate and/or monthly payments so that the loan is more affordable as a way to avoid foreclosure. Deferment. The lender agrees with the borrower's request to delay or defer their delinquent payments until a later date. So again, let's say somebody hasn't paid their payment for 2 years. Let's say they're 100,000 behind on missed payments. Well, in a deferment, the lender's agreeing to defer that entire $100,000 amount to the very end. So they may have 27 years remaining on their mortgage. So that's a good thing for a borrower. If they can put it all the way to the end, it gives them breathing room when they sell it or refinance it later, instead of being foreclosed out. Okay, a reinstatement. After borrower and lender agree to modify the monthly payments to avoid foreclosure, the loan is removed from foreclosure status and reinstated in good standing. Short sale. If and when the mortgage debt is greater than the current market value for the property, or it's upside down or underwater, the homeowner should contact me so that my team and I can help negotiate a discounted mortgage payment with the lender and find them a qualified new buyer. 20 years ago, I worked with the #1 short sale investor in America out of San Diego. They bought 6,000 short sales. They were #1 in the nation. I understood what they were doing, and their 2 attorney owners sent me a lot of their clients. So very, very few people understand short sale workouts. And that's true for residential and commercial. And that's partly because we've seen a housing boom the last 10 years or longer. But if and when the values start going the other way and dropping, there's going to be a lot of short sale workouts. Okay, and lastly, cash for keys. The lender may pay the delinquent homeowner somewhere between $5,000 and $35,000 for the keys from the delinquent homeowner. And they'll also ask the homeowner not to take the appliances on their way out, like back in the last meltdown. So I know of a lot of situations where the homeowners did not pay their mortgage for 3 or 4 years, especially on larger jumbo loans like Beverly Hills, where it was like a $3 million loan amount. The lender did not want to file foreclosure because it would hurt the stock value of the bank. So they would approach a lot of these homeowners and say, look, we're not going to foreclose. We won't ding your credit, and we'll give you cash if you vacate. But they would not give the homeowner cash until the homeowner left, because again, they don't want the homeowner to walk out with $50,000 in appliances. So these are situations to learn, whether you're a distressed homeowner or an investor or a broker. Okay, lastly, helping realtors and investors close more deals. As I said earlier, I've written college textbooks and courses in most states for the 2 largest U.S. real estate educational firms and the oldest real estate school in California. I've created hundreds of articles about fix and flip, short sales, seller financing. Subject twos, wraparounds, and paper flips are really some of my specialties. I was doing those decades ago, so I really like those. Foreclosure bailouts, and I also was featured on the cover of Creative Real Estate magazine, where I was the #1 most published author for 10 years. My favorite publication was Creative Real Estate magazine. A lot of the big real estate gurus got their start from them. And I was interviewing their television show and radio shows as well. But I was their #1 published author over a decade. I've taught real estate licensees and investors across the nation how to find prospects, distressed properties, and boost their sphere of influence to find more clients and prospects. If you or your clients have credit issues, again, I recently wrote the credit course for the 2nd largest U.S. real estate publisher and can help quickly boost FICO scores. I can get you fast pre-approvals and help structure the offer with maximum credits to minimize cash to close. My team and I can simplify complex deals to make it easier for the brokers and the investors. I'm affiliated with hundreds of real estate investment clubs and 1031 tax-deferred exchange groups, which have upwards of tens of thousands of qualified or all-cash buyers who can close quickly. I will help your listings by sharing mortgage flyers with you on my networking platforms. And we also buy distressed properties. So if you have a deal, bring them my way. So thank you for taking the time to stick with me. And again, I will email this entire slideshow presentation so you can review it at home or at work. Just send me an email to my work email at info@realloans.com. And that's info, the @ real loans, REALLOANS.com. My business name, Real Estate Loans. My real loans is a compound word for real estate loans. So again, if you'd like the presentation, just send me an email and I'll send it to you. So again, thank you for your time. I do appreciate it. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me as well. Thank you and have a great day and a great week. Take care.